hear me, friend? On the block, we began. Take it to all the world with internet.
I'm not a Muslim, but we all have to ask the question, who are the real terrorists? Where is the inquiry? Where is the justice? The hypocrisy of the West democracy, taking out lives by the non-alien, wanton greed and hatred driven. We all have to take a stand and fight this anti-humanitarianism.
Peace, family. So we're back with it once again this week. We're joined once again with a guest that is definitely no stranger to this platform. He joined us in the past on the DOATBM to speak about some important issues in regards to mental health and things of that nature. This week, we're looking at things still to do with health, but we're looking, I guess, on the wider aspect of the world, some of the geopolitical things that are happening in regards to the system and things of that nature. So without much further ado, welcome back, my brother Noel Lindsay. What's good with you, man?
Thank you very much for having me again on your show. It's an absolute privilege and a pleasure, and thank you for doing what you do.
I appreciate it, and I wouldn't be able to do it without brothers like yourself who are out there putting in work, also, you know, being creative, putting things together that give us the opportunity to just look at these talking points and, you know, expand things a bit wider to some of our audience as well, who may not be familiar with some of the things that are happening in the local community as well also. So I want to get kind of straight into it and talk a bit about a project that I've seen you advertising and promoting. I believe you had a launch, I don't want to say about a week ago now.
Yeah, the 9th of November, Pachamama was launched.
Okay, so yeah, so the 9th of November, Pachamama was launched. Now, do you want to break down even just from the beginning, I guess, the name Pachamama, where did that derive from? And I guess some of the motivation behind just creating this movement.
Right. Yeah, well, Pachamama is, it's sort of from the Incas, and basically it's about the Mother Earth, is basically the definition of it. But what I've tried to do is expand it a bit to include the people, the resources, and life generally speaking. That's how I've kind of tried to embrace it myself and try to put that message across.
Okay, so when we speak, you say, you know, Mother Earth. Some people look at it, when we just look at, I guess, everything what's happening in the world at the minute now, we see a lot of separation, we see a lot of division. Even recently I saw a post which was somebody who was under fire for suggesting that Christmas becomes more Palestinian because people are trying to root Jesus to Palestine. I say all this to say that in the world that we're currently in, it seems that so many people get hung up or bent out of shape when it comes to, I guess, nationalism sometimes, where they're from, taking ownership on the land and resources, where I think, you know, a lot of people, they may grow up in a particular region, they feel as though they're the only ones that have any authority to it or to the world or to, you know, so there's a lot of division and separation we see. How do you feel about like that with that being said?
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things about that motivated me to towards the concept of Pachamama and the message of Pachamama is really about the fact that this place, this planet, this world, you know, was given to all of us by God and nature, however way you want to kind of define that. And you know, on the 9th of November, we launched Pachamama to plant the message, to plant the seed. Happened to be coincidentally Remembrance Weekend. And if we think of all the people, all the lives, all the different nationalities, the Muslims, the, you know, the Commonwealth, people from the Commonwealth who fought for freedom, for us now, who gave their lives to and stood in the face of adversity, stood in opposition to things that were, you know, anti-humanitarianism, etc. You know, and, you know, coming now to a stage where people can't speak, people can't express themselves, people are allowed to object to the insanities that that are in our midst at every corner. So that's the whole idea was to rethink, replant a seed. Actually, this place, this time, these resources on this planet belong to all of us, regardless of who you are. It wasn't given to the elite to run and control. And I'm just, the message is, it belongs to us. It was given to all of us. Let's take it back.
I mean, great message. I mean, recently we've saw quite a bit of turmoil and unrest, even within the UK. You mentioned obviously Remembrance Day and stuff as well, and the armistice. And we've seen a lot of, I guess, separation and division where some people have been feeling as though certain rights only belong to them or only belong to particular groups. Do you think that this has been somewhat stirred up from the elites and sort of had a trickle down effect, or do you think that the people at the bottom are just at loggerheads with each other for little reason?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think history can show us that you divide and rule, and whether you're looking at the conflicts or world wars, you will find that these things aren't by accident. These conflicts are by design. They're actually created for the people to fight each other, for different groups, different religions to fight each other, rather than joining together and saying, well, look, this is not a correct way to treat this group. This is not a correct way to treat this group. You've got the Palestinians who have been in constant camps for generations upon generations upon generations of Palestinians, people or whatever, who are living in these conditions, generations after generations after generation. Just one example of a group of people who are being oppressed, and who are, they're treated in an anti-humane way. And, that's just one group. Yeah, we can go into other areas, but the main thing is that people have to understand that these wars, these conflicts are by design, are created so that people confront, are in conflict with each other, do fight each other, and actually don't see the real enemy behind the causes of these things.
Well said. I mean, just to sort of, I guess, stay on the Palestinian issue, and I don't necessarily want to just point these guys out, but we do know it is a high talking point of what's happening, and it has a global impact of how we've seen just people responding to it around the world, in Europe and America. I want to use that somewhat, I guess, as an axiom to look at whether the media and I guess the elites have played a part in propagating and also promoting that type of division more so. Because as you said, I mean, one of the things and that I want to just point out before I kind of let you take the floor on this is when you did your Pachamama event, and prior to it I saw some of the poetry that you're quite known for that you put out, which is always stuff that makes people think. And you put out a couple of pieces, and one of them, you started off by saying, I'm not a Muslim, and then you broke down certain things of just, I guess, even yourself not being a Muslim, but still being able to identify where there could be errors that are happening towards people from that community. Now, the thing is, the thing about your event, you had a lot of people from different faiths, different nationalities, creeds, groups, backgrounds. How important is that to you?
I mean, it's extremely important, because the whole concept is, we see it so many times, groups of children from all walks, all connections, all creeds, colors, religions, to just play naturally together. They just, even if they can't speak language, they find a game and they play and they have fun. This is us in our natural habitat. It's not natural to want to kill, to want to have war, to want to have conflict. So these things that we have are created. These things are, there to actually break that normal level of understanding, love, affinity that people have for each other, regardless of race, religion, color, etc. And these headings are used continuously to set one group, against each other. But actually, if we look at nature is in harmony with each other. Nature is in symmetry with each other. The trees give us something to breathe, and we give the trees something to breathe. This is natural. This is nature. So all this conflict and war is prescribed. It's designed that way.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I answer your question.
I mean, you did still within a sense, because I know that you're passionate about just people, and the thing is, we don't want to get necessarily too political. I don't know if you particularly follow any kind of religion or stuff. Some people, they feel as though religion is the major problem within society, and that people from different religious groups can't get along. Now, you've actually shown that this isn't true, because in your event, Pachamama, you had people there from multiple religious groups and stuff like that. Now, do you think that there is a part to, I don't want to say a part to play from the religious aspect, but do you think they need to take some responsibility as well also? Because we do see some people from religious groups that do act adversely to others that can cause issues. So I do understand that we do have a lot of this stuff being stirred up from the system, and sometimes even myself, I get into a bit of a I should say, I don't want to say it's stupid, but I don't like it when I see certain things on like the news and mainstream media, for instance, where they celebrate sometimes the death and destruction of others, because even if we don't agree with somebody and we have different religious or political beliefs, we should be able to understand their existence and even, not celebrate death and conflict and stuff like that. So kind of, do you think that there is a part to play from the religious standpoint as well, or do you think it's just more so just coming from the head downwards?
No, I think yes, there's a lot of controversy. Religion is put in the forefront of the reasons sometimes for conflict, because so many people have died in religious historical wars, etc. I understand all that, but if we go back to the basis of religion generally, religion is to a large degree is about truth. Now, one of the things that most religions talk about is identifying who we are as individuals, as spiritual beings. Most religions has a concept that actually, we live and we continue to live because we are actually spiritual beings. And what's happened over decades, this concept of who we are is the first erosion. People have now a concept that we're just animals. And this is through philosophy, and not philosophy, through psychology. A guy called Wundt, a German person, who kind of had this concept, which has then been permeated throughout the world. But prior to that, there was a concept of humanitarianism. There was a concept that religion was as it is in terms of identifying who we are. If we go back thousands and thousands of years, they knew man was a spirit. They knew that we were a spiritual entity, and we had certain qualities about us. And it doesn't matter what religion you are. The concept that we are spiritual beings, that we have a quality about us, was identified throughout religion. So if we look at religion, for me as a whole, we have that concept, a true identity of who we are. We're not animals. We are something very much more special than that. Well, once you've erased that original identity, and now people are being pushed to say, well, they're animals, their bodies, etc., anything can actually take place. But we are a higher level being, which has now been undermined, been reduced, been suppressed to something completely different. And, for me, that's the essence of religion. It doesn't matter what religion, they all talk about the life ever after and living as a spiritual being. So for me, that's the most important concept. The teachings of religion, generally speaking, has been about a guidance on how to live, how to respect your fellow man, how to go about life in a sort of a clean way. So, simple things, the Bible, don't cover another, person's wife, if those, again, I'm not bigging up one against the other or
Yes.
saying one is more important than the other. But those principles, if they were followed, would underpin a lot of stability for a lot of people. And we wouldn't get the drama and the fallout that we have in so many areas.
No, that's quite spot on. I can't remember who the European philosopher was that suggested that man is like an animal walking on his hind legs, but we know that not to be true. And as you quite aptly said, we know that we are actually spiritual beings. Now, when we look at religion, what you said was absolutely spot on, and I feel as though maybe that is, I guess, some of the causation for some of the issues, because people aren't really rooting themselves in the deeper spiritual understandings, but more so in the physical understanding. So it's become, I don't want to say for everybody, but for a lot of people, more of who they are as a human. Like, oh, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Christian, I'm a this, I'm a that, or I'm an Arab, I'm a American, whatever it is, these kind of labels and these terrestrial terms that they've put on themselves. And I think it has more of an association for a lot of people, more so to the humanistic and the physical aspect as opposed to the spiritual aspect. Because as you quite said, if they was looking at things from a spiritual level, they would find that correlation, and you would see more of that sort of peace and that harmony. Now, I don't want to go, I guess, too much down that road of things, but bringing it back to some of the work that you're doing with Pachamama, what can we expect in the future? Will you be working with other religious organizations and individuals to show that solidarity, that people can come forth together in a positive way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's essential. The famous humanitarian once said, the people are the wheel, they're not the cogs in the wheel. And in part of my poem about Pachamama, I say Pachamama only lives and breathes because of those who give a damn and those who care, the heart of humanity on the sleeve they wear. And that's the truth. If the normal people, the people of the planet are the people that actually keep things going, get things going, but they don't realize necessarily how much power they have. For example, we talked about other things, but if we look in our own communities generally, we see things going on in school that most of us do not agree with. Teachers being asked to teach things that have nothing to do with being educating children in terms of achieving academic excellence, achieving critical thinking about life. Now they're being asked to talk, issues around gender and so on and so forth. Now, the point about it is this, yes, people have a right to be who they want to be. They have a right to identify who they want to be. Absolutely, 100%. But when it takes the precedent of it takes over the precedent of what education is for, when it takes the precedent over an
The necessity.
individual, being able to grow up and explore and expand his own identity, and it's being forced down the throats of the majority, and when people cannot openly say, this is insanity. Yes, people have a right to be who they want to be, but please don't force it down the throat of the rest of us, the majority. And, the whole thing about it is that, again, we go back to, well, actually, we're spiritual beings. We're spiritual beings. We choose a body which has gender. The body is the Anyway, that's my view, right? The body is the one that has gender. We're a spiritual being. I mean, really. However, people have a right to think and be who they want to be. Not a problem for majority. But don't force it down the throat of the rest of us and gag us at the same time. So we can't say, hey, bro, you are on the wrong path. Get the heck out of here. So that we as parents can protect our children. So we as adults can actually foresee and plan and have confidence in the future progeny of the race. You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
So,
100%.
so but let's look at this. If, for example, the parents in my neighborhood said, we actually don't agree with this, and we're not sending our children back to that school until you actually give the essence of teaching the credibility and the application that it should. So my child goes to school, learns about academic stuff and actually how to apply himself in life, rather than things which are, being forced that aren't necessary on them. And this is why we'd send our children to school. If the parents said, well, actually, I'm not sending my kid back to that school, they would change, because that's the power of the people.
All right.
You see what I mean? And that's the essence of Pachamama. People have the right, people have the ability, and the people joining together, regardless of race, color, creed, religion, have the power to say, do you know what? This is nonsense. We ain't doing that. So sort it out. Trust me, they would sort it out, because if this village did it, the next village would say, do you know what? We're following them. It will all be over.
Oh, that's right. It is a sense of, leading by example and seeing people come together in that aspect. I mean, you make a great point when you speak about the educational system and just certain things that they are fostering or even forcing just within education. I think in one aspect, parents need to do a lot more, as you said, whether it's just in the stance of them coming together and to challenge things, but also in terms of them parenting and teaching their child as well, because I don't want to put everybody in the same bracket, but some people have I think a misunderstanding where they feel as though they just send their kids to school and whatever they teach them is going to give them all the tools that they need for life, when we know that isn't actually true. Now, when we look at society, you make a great point when you talk about just the suppression that we see that happens, because ultimately, if we look at the old civilizations and we look at old mystery systems and teachings and schools and different things of that nature, there is a sense of development, a sense of evolving, a sense of going up the bridge, so to speak, and going to the next level. But if
Mhm.
you look at just how most things are done in society, there's a lot of things that is, dare I say, systemically put in place, and even the educational system, just to keep people at a certain level and suppress them really going to any higher heights of even just thinking, of consciousness, of evolution. And I think that really is a shame. It may be something that people need to make more of a active approach to change if they want to themselves. I do know that there are some alternative forms of schools like Steiner schools. I don't know if you're familiar with Rudolf Steiner, but I believe they derived off the back of some of his philosophy, who really looked at different aspects of teaching and child development and making changes on a wider sense. Now, I do think that's something that people should look at, just different teaching methods, and parents just trying to teach in the way that they can, but not to go
Yeah.
too much down that road. I guess bringing things back to your event, bringing things back to Pachamama, bringing things back to Mother Earth, which is where ultimately everything is and where it started from and stuff. So, one of the things that I particularly did enjoy from what I saw from the event was some of the performances from I believe you had like a Bollywood star there. You had a few, it was like a folk singer. You had a few things. You could probably mention a bit more of those guys' names. Do you want to mention some of the names of the talent that featured there?
Yeah, before we do that, I just want to touch on one thing. Sorry to go
Oh,
backwards,
no
but
worries.
one of the things that one of the ads that I put out for Pachamama, and I said this, and this is very, very true. There is Delphine Ryan is somebody who has she's somebody who taught her children. She did homeschooling her children. She taught her son, for example, the whole of the maths curriculum in 6 months.
Wow.
She has helped numerous people. She's looked at education. She's looked at the educational system. She's done a research, and she's looked at the current education system. And she looked at where it came from. She's done her research, looked at where it's come from, and why excuse me, and why it's in place, what the purpose of it is, and why it is that she also identifies this guy Wouldn't, right? The German, whatever he was, psychologist or whatever I think he was. And how he was the one that took education out of the realm of philosophy and religion and put it in psychology. So therefore, we now have education in psychology, so that the behavior aspects of children are being looked at in terms of education, rather than looking at them individually from a religious or philosophical point of view, where it was in the first place. Now, for example, while it was in the philosophy and religious package or group or zone, there was no psychology, which meant that they couldn't then look at children having learning difficulties on medication, couldn't then look at ADHD and all these other syndromes, which since then they have created and now give the children when they can't sit still or they're active or whatever. A fascinating study. I recommend anybody look at that. She's number one on Google. If you look at STEM literacy, if you look at 24 characteristics of genius, and so on, if you look at her, her name is Delphine Ryan, go on Google. Parents should look at that. Now, there's lots more to that, but the point is this. As a parent, you want to know 100% that your child is going to reach their maximum potential academically and be able to think critically, right? And the point is, the system doesn't allow your child to be pushed to the level that they should do. And I'll give you an example of that. My son is teaching his son at home. My son, who's 8, is doing things that 16 and the 17-year-olds do. The point about it is that there is a system of technology which is available, which Delphine Ryan uses, that if employed, I'm going to say something majorly destructive or disruptive here.
That's okay. We're off for that on the show.
What Delphine Ryan knows was employed by educators, there would be order restored in the classroom. If teachers employed the stuff that Delphine Ryan employs, our children would reach their maximal potential in terms of academics and also, being critical thinkers about life and understanding how to think about life, right?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I don't want to interject. You carry on. I'll
So what I'm saying to parents is, yes, we have experts who are taught to teach and have qualifications that we don't have. I totally get that. And I'm not belittling any teachers. Teachers are in there for the right cause, just like I was as a social worker. We're in there because we want to help, we want the best. But the system does not allow the pupils to reach their full academic and critical thinking potential. And if there's anything that we need at this moment on this planet is young people who can think, who can critically think and analyze, and think independently and rationally analyze, but also achieve their goals, aims, and purposes. I'm going to leave that bit there because there's much, much more to that. But check her out. Anyone listening, don't feel right. Go on the website, check her out. If you're a parent, check her out. If you're an educator, check her out, because all the money and disturbance and concerns about our educational system can be handled quite simply. And yes, I'm going to get shot down. I'm going to be said that I'm a nutcase. I'm not a teacher. I'm not qualified. I get all of that. But actually, I've seen it myself. So I don't care. I have the evidence. I have the certainty. And I know it's true. So I really don't care. Anyway, I'm going to shut up on that.
You know, you're making some points, and I do feel that that's how it gets, especially when we're not like to say disrupting things, but similarly to when we pointed out, I guess, some of the flaws or the errors within the media and the elites and how certain things are done from that level, where they suppress the truth and don't allow people to look at things objectively to make an informed decision on a particular topic. It's sort of like, you know, they just feed them the narrative that they want. It's very similar in the educational system and just with schooling, as you said, where sometimes they withhold certain technologies that could be implemented or used in a positive or productive way. And it's a shame, you know, that they do that. And I don't think we can expect much different, sadly. Oftentimes I look at just the state of the world and I say, people don't understand the world is really being ran by some wicked, evil, psychopathic type of people. But you know, I make light of it, but that's kind of the actual facts of it when we see just some of the horrors and stuff that are happening, and the people that are in power that have some of these technologies and stuff at their disposal and their resource that they could actually push through to the wider aspect of humanity, but they don't particularly want to do that in a lot of times, which is quite sad. You know, we're on to some good points, but we're going to take a short break right now because we got a bit of a countdown on some time, and then we're going to tune back in with Noel Lindsay. Hey, welcome back, guys. So we're still joined with Brother Noel, and we've been having quite a deep conversation. In one regard, we're only scratching the surface on some things, but some of the issues are very important. And, you know, we just made some points prior to the break where we was just looking at some of the suppression that happens from society when it comes to some of these avenues, which draws us back to the importance of the work that you're doing with Pachamama, and why that is so important as being like a bridge to connect different people together and also disseminate different bits of information. So do you want to give us a bit more info on that?
Yeah, it's important what you said about the impact of the other groups or individuals who are trying to you know, who cause and create conflict between the majority. But the saving grace is that we as individuals can talk to each other, can support each other, you know, can disagree with the treatment of our neighbor, regardless of whether they're from the same group as us. And that galvanizes, that, you know, reinforces the strength, reinforces the unity amongst us. You know, can you imagine the impact of it has on a victim or somebody who is somebody who is doing something, a wrongdoer, somebody who's doing something wrong, where somebody from another group steps in and supports that individual? It has an impact on both the victim and the wrongdoer, because the power that generates is quite incredible and quite simple. And I'm not trying to say that people should be heroes, but I'm saying the power lies within the community to change the community, just like the power lies within the family to improve the family. The same with the community, the same with the street. If my street decided that we were actually going to support each other, obviously if there's some things going wrong that people are doing, yeah, obviously we're going to call it out. But where we see, individuals or groups being attacked, well, let's stand by them and say, bro, you can't be doing that. This guy's my neighbor or my whatever. It sends a very, very strong message, and that it undoes that divisiveness that is current. If people are all saying the same thing, it has a tremendous impact financially, emotionally, socially, etc. So despite it all, there is strength there, and we need to recoup that strength to actually make things go forward. There is no reason why we have so much technology, and yet the planet, we have scientists and so on and so forth, yet the planet is in such a state. Our rivers, our seas, etc., etc. What is this science and technology that we have? Why isn't it being used to make the planet a better place? Why are we having to listen to excuses for this, for that, and the other? Again, I just wanted to touch on that to say, we sticking together and telling the truth when we observe it and supporting each other from different places is going to have a tremendous impact. I mean, not asking anyone to do this, but I was involved with. I came out of the petrol station. There was a thief abusing the manager of the petrol station. I stopped and I said, "Hold on a second. This man is providing a service. How dare you abuse him? He's actually doing a service for the community." They both looked at me in shock. You see, but if we show our disagreement with things that are not correct, the power that we have that are demonstrated on both sides is absolutely incredible. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I can attest to that, and I think one of the things sometimes what we see a lot of in society is I can't speak for people, but from some people that I've been in proximity with or around from the Black community and stuff, they feel as though in some cases that maybe perhaps other groups don't come out and support them, so they feel as though they shouldn't support other groups. And you do sometimes hear, I think it's a philosophy or somewhat of a quote that says, if you do nothing when somebody else is being mistreated, then it can kind of come back round on you. So it sort of kind of creates that thing that goes round and around. Now, you mentioned being obviously a parent. We know that you've got background in just like education, social work, things of that nature, and just as a caring humanitarian, somebody who actually cares about the betterment of society, what drives you to then do the work that you do? I mean, even you just mentioned being in a petrol station. Some people, they're not going to put their stick their neck out for somebody else, and where does that passion come from?
Well, I think again, it's going back. If we go back, if we step back in time, it wouldn't happen. Somebody couldn't watch and wouldn't watch another individual being targeted wrongly and not do anything. You couldn't do something in your street that was incorrect, and the neighbor or the neighbor's neighbor not say anything. And that in itself was very powerful, because it meant that order was in and order was restored and people were taking responsibility for their own area. And, again, we go back to the people who, have allowed us to be the way we are by the ultimate sacrifice of fighting for rights, fighting for our freedom, and they would not tolerate something which was incorrect. They would not tolerate it. We have been driven to the point where we have to, mind our own business. We have to just fight our own corner because we have to survive. never mind anyone else. It's not correct, because we're all connected to the system. We're all connected to society. And when we start, supporting each other, the whole thing changes. The whole thing changes. People respond differently. They know that certain areas they can't do certain things. Certain things they can't get away with because the people will react. And this is the point. Or like lots of other groups and people, like-minded people, we want to get together to actually say, do you know what? The system as it is belongs to all of us. Let's take a bigger share of responsibility. Let's fight for each other. Let's support each other. Yes, clearly, and there's lots of things being said and done about, about different groups and so on. But we have to get beyond that and see, well, actually, that is just a point of causation in terms of conflict. We can go back and see it so often, where something has been put in the system on social media and people then react to it, but it was a lie in the first place, you see. And we have to go back to, as I say, just really recognizing that the conflict is prescribed, is created, and is designed. And we have to kind of start from that point, rather than the nonsense that we get told all the time, every day, about this group, about that group, and about blah and blah and blah. The real issues are not being addressed.
That's right. And I mean, even to touch on that, we saw some of that as living proof over the summer in the UK with the far right riots, as they have been dubbed. And some people feel different ways about it. They feel that they shouldn't be labeled as far right, so on and so forth. But however, we saw a lot of that, as you said, sort of spanned out from misinformation that was put out there, and people pulling strings and things like that, and sort of pitting one group against the other in a lot of ways. And it's definitely sad to see. In terms of Pachamama, what can people do if they want to be involved or maybe support the project or get involved? Because there will be people that will be listening or even looking at this and thinking, hey, you know what, we're like-minded. We don't just, want to separate ourselves from everybody else and just sort of have that mindset of we actually want to put our best foot forward and support other members of the human family and come together and show that kind of solidarity. So how can they get in touch for that?
Well, absolutely. As I say, this is the strength of unity and people coming together. It doesn't matter who they are. The Woodlands Trust was invited to attend the Pachamama launch. They were very sorry that it was a short notice. Other people wanted to attend. They were gospel churches, etc. People, it doesn't really matter. It's about transferable skills. It's about transferable knowledge, and this is the whole point. There are people who know. There are people who know how to know. Whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's nutrition, whether it's spirituality, religion, whatever the case may be, science, whatever. There is truth, and a lot of people know a lot of truth and actually can make things a lot better. We need to unite to actually put all our eggs in the same basket, or whatever the expression is, so we can actually make the changes that's needed. I touched on education and parents being able to improve the actual achievement of the academic and sort of goals. But there's lots of other areas which, if we transfer those knowledge and skills, we can actually make the changes. Change is possible. We can actually bring about that change by coming together, by transferring those knowledge and skills. It's not business as usual. Business as usual is not working. Following the line of my family, my group, we're going to take care of each other is not working. Have a look at the planet, have a look at the resources, have a look at which group, how many are controlling the situation to the detriment of the majority. So we have to really look, not to buy into the narrative. let the people of Pachamama write the narrative, be the content creators by standing together and saying, well, actually, did you know what? This matters to us. We're not interested in that because that doesn't make sense. It's not scientific. It's not something that's actually going to bring forward the increased survival, of the race or humanity, right? So we have to step back and stand together and look.
No, that's right. I mean, I do believe there will be a lot of people that will want to stand with you, shoulder to shoulder. How can they get in touch?
Yes, they can get in touch with me through an email, which is lapachama, LAPACHAMA 92 at gmail.com. There is a phone number they can get in touch with me on 07595 633 074. We're going to have future events. The key thing, I did a sketch on I'm Not a Muslim, and the reason I did that sketch was to actually identify some of the facts, some of the realities that aren't being spoken about this group.
Well, you
not
did
the only
one,
group, as
of course, not to cut, but you did one that was quite brilliant because you spoke about, I think just like some of their involvement in like some of the wars and stuff, and there was like, I can't remember all the stats now, but you had some stats with like economics and stuff like that as well, with just how much money they've helped generate. And as you said, there is other groups as well, but I'll let you.
Yeah, absolutely. If we look at I spoke out not as a Muslim, but being able to look and observe and speak what my observation was. And we looked at how much they contribute to the UK economy. It was news to me. It was a bit of a shock to me. They contribute 32 billion to the UK economy, 2.1 trillion to the world economy, right? More than any other social group or religion. In the month of Ramadan, they give 100 million to charities. So these are some of the things that aren't spoken about of this group.
That's right.
Within the group, it's known, but it puts a total different connotation there. And when you have somebody else from another group saying the truth about something, making an observation that isn't the narrative spoken normally, then we have a kind of, oh, really? Yeah, exactly. And that's
right.
the whole thing. Is about another person saying about something else, their observation, the truth about something else
That's
is
right.
key to us coming together and recognizing, well, actually, I listened to 2 months ago, somebody, member of parliament, who was really reminded me of the Rivers of Blood speech by
Enoch Powell.
Mr. Yeah, exactly. And again, he was talking about the Muslim religion group as a threat to the UK, and so on and so forth. Well, actually, when you look at the economics of the situation, when you look at the reasons why that group follows their teachings the way they do, we find a lot of things about that group that isn't promoted, isn't pushed out there, because as a group, their teachings and ways of going about life are some of the most survival qualities and actions that one could have, in terms of having the least marriage breakdown, family breakdown, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So we've got that group, for example, being attacked because of this, that, and the other. When you open that box, you think, well, actually, hold on a second.
Well, I think, as you said, a lot of it's down to the information that gets put out there, and I mean, I can understand, some people's I guess fears and issues in some aspects. Now, that ultimately, as you said, can come from information that can be skewered a particular way. Now, we often hear some people, more so recently over the past few years, they look at the Muslim community and they say, oh, what are they doing for England? Why are they even here? They're opposed to us. So as you said, when you put out a stat like that, it does show a glaring polar opposite of the fact that they actually are doing something and stuff here. And, I think it's because society kind of fosters this mindset where they just group everybody together in one category, and it's not always absolute. That's why I always keep my logo "No Squares Allowed," which is my part of my one of my slogans, because I refuse to let them box me into any of their boxes of conformity. And not to get down on like the Muslim community as such, because I do feel that there is a rise of people sort of looking at them adversely now, but we do see it with other groups. We see, even with the Jewish community now, they're facing a lot of it as well. And I've interviewed Muslims, I've interviewed Jews, Christians, people from across the spectrum when it comes to like a pantheon of gods or religions or whatever they profess to believe in. And I think ultimately at a base level there is a lot of similarities, or should be, from just what people want out of life, just in terms of a better quality of life and just developing. But I think psychologically, some people are, I don't want to say unevolved, and whether we put that on society or whether we put that on families or whether we put that on cultural groups, and there's so many different, I guess, reasons to why. But I think many people, and this goes across the board for loads of different groups, they haven't mentally evolved, I guess, to the point of where they only include themselves in their groups, so they discount everybody else. And I think, as you quite aptly said, that's what people need to break past, and that's what you're actually doing and planting those seeds with Pachamama and the whole project. That's and I was kind of, stop me if I'm foreshadowing a bit, but from what you said about there being like gospel and stuff, it kind of seems like there's going to be another event coming up.
Yeah, the Pachamama, as I say, was launched on the 9th of November, and we've sort of planted the initial seeds. But Pachamama is about planting seeds. It's about coming together more and more. It's about people really showing they can work together, transfer of knowledge. The point about it is, as I said, that we need to know certainly that things can change and that we, the people, can change things. We are not beholden on any heroic, established systems, leaders, or people in states, because they haven't changed anything. They haven't changed anything. They do a lot of what I call a goldfish affliction, which is doing a lot of mouthing, but there's nothing changing for the better. And we need to kind of recognize that, and we have the intention to make things better, and we have the purpose, and we have the ability to do that by joining each other. You made a point about, again, it's not strictly about that, but for example, the Muslims, we're talking about the Remembrance Weekend. Muslims died in the First and Second World War for this country. Black people died in the First and Second War for this country. So it's insane when we talk about them and home and all of this other rhetoric that comes across. It's absolute nonsense. When you look at it, from a point of view of so many on so many levels, it's so narrow-minded. You're not even actually thinking, and this is what we need to do.
No, that's right. And it's that development of people. Just, I guess, sometimes it takes for them to see it and see an example, and each one teach ones, that sort of mindset. And that's why with what you're doing, I hope it gets even more publicity and stuff as well, and people pick up on it, and more people attend the events as they continue forward and do the best that they can. Now, before we wind down, there was one of the I guess major I don't want to say talking points of this conversation, but something that kind of kept coming up is just when we look at society, when we look at the elites, when we look at how things are done, and we look at the technology that we have, or sometimes lack thereof, is there anything that you would suggest for the listeners or for the viewers that they could use in terms of, especially from an educational standpoint, when we were saying, just things that can help with their own development?
Yeah, I would suggest that they look at Delphine Ryan. Go on Delphine Ryan's site. She is somebody that has a lot of information around education, its barriers, and how any individual. And yes, there are stellar examples of this where somebody has enabled themselves to, from the depths of nowhere to achieve. There's so many cases and so many examples of this in life across the planet and across the world, etc., etc. So, in terms of Delphine Ryan, she's a very good starting point. She gives a lot of examples. She gives a lot of data, which people can actually look at and find the sources of it and so on. But
it's quantifiable.
The main thing, yeah, it's quantifiable. It's usable. My son said to me, "Dad, this information is the way that it's laid out. It's so accessible." He's teaching his son, my grandson, biology.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh my God, the way that this stuff is laid out makes it so accessible, so enjoyable, so understandable." And he said, well, when he compares it to the system, the school system or books, it's very confusing. And he said to me, this is his words, "I wonder if it's supposed to be that way."
The system, the system it is something when you think of it. About a year ago now, perhaps, I interviewed a brother who he teaches maths to kids through sing song and stuff like that. And
right.
He was saying there's some kids that he's taught that were at the lower end of the spectrum when it comes to the education, that they wasn't able, people learn different ways. So even you just saying that, like, is the system set a certain type of way with a sense of rigidity, and if you don't get it, you sort of get pushed down even further, and if you do, you sort of kind of scratch the surface of what you do get, because it's not giving you a holistic 360 degree knowledge of the they're just scratching the surface. They're giving you just like, if we're talking degrees, they might be giving you 5 to 10 or something, but so I do think perhaps there is something that may suggest are things set that type of way. I do personally, in my own belief, feel as though that we do live in quite a malevolent world where sometimes it may not be the majority, it could be the ruling minority, but they actually have that level of power to sort of pull the strings on these things. And otherwise we would see a much more flourishing society. I was actually watching a movie yesterday called Interstellar. I'm not sure if you've seen it, a space exploration movie, but it touches on so many, it's like a 3-hour long movie. They go to all these different planets, and they're trying to basically save Earth, which is dying for some, reason. And but some of the nuances and just some of the little points of conversation where they're even just speaking on humanity. There's one point where they go to a planet where a guy's been stranded, and they think they're going to inhabit that planet, but it's actually uninhabitable. But he doesn't tell them that because he wanted somebody to rescue him. So when they get there, he sort of has a bit of a conversation with one of the I guess the pilot, just about humanity and how people still haven't grasped the concept of putting the race first, or the whole thing opposed to themselves, and certain different things. So it has quite a lot of nuanced conversations, which I think are quite relative just to even the times that we live in and what we see, even just as things unfold.
Yes. Very interesting.
It's quite good. I know it's quite a bit of a tangent, but it's still relative to the conversation. I mean, before we wind down though, brother, is there anything that you want to let people know to look out for? Obviously, I did kind of say, is there going to be any more events? myself, I didn't get to make the last one. I would definitely look to if there's another one to come forward and give my support and involvement.
Yeah, I would love you to be involved. Yes, we're planning future events. As I say, it's just the initial seed. Since then, we've had requests to be involved in other things. We've got people that couldn't make it, groups that couldn't make it that want to be involved in future events. So there will be future events. As I said, go on to Delphine's website, Delphine Ryan's website. There will be workshops around education for parents and for children to handle some of the things that we parents are faced with. I mean, it's quite stark that in this day and age, we have a system which is systematically drugging our children. Systematically, children between the age of 0 and 5 and upwards, of course, are being medicated and told to have mental conditions and so on, anxiety and all this kind of stuff. And it's become a sort of a normal kind of response. Oh yeah, my son's got ADHD, he's on Ritalin or whatever the case may be. You see, when you look at it in terms of its real cause, and we take education out of psychology and we put it back where it should
supposed to be,
we're looking at the incidence experience in a totally different way. And where we see a continual escalation of so-called mental health, mental diseases, more and more agencies, more and more money is being poured into this so-called crisis, but there's no solutions, no cures, and no scientific basis, understanding, or reason for what they come up with. So when your child gets labeled with a learning disorder or ADHD, that medication does not help their condition. It does not get to the source of whatever dramatization they are exhibiting. It's not something they're on for a few months and then they're happy and they're good and they're back to... No, it isn't that way. Instead, what parents have to understand, there's no science, there's no cures, there's no change in terms of happy outcomes, as in the medication that have been assigned, changing that pupils' behavior via getting to the true source. Now, when you listen to Delphine Ryan, some of the things that she tells you are frightening. For example, she had somebody who said to her that the person said, "Oh, I'm dyslexic." So she said, "Okay, good. So read this passage." The individual young girl read the passage. After she read the passage, Delphine said, "Okay, what do you understand?" She says, "I don't understand it at all. I'm confused, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, so Delphine then went through the passage again, word by word, getting her to understand what the words mean. For example, each word in context, what the word means. She then got her to read the passage again. The child read the passage without stumbling, and when she got to the end, she was asked the same question. And she told Delphine, "Oh gosh, I understand it now." And this is an example where we have a label which actually doesn't mean anything. There's no scientific reason, basis, or justification behind it. Because if there was, then there would be an understanding of its true nature and source, and therefore a change.
Well,
that's what parents need to understand. Just because the person in authority, be it a teacher, a doctor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or whatever, who's saying your child has blah, They need to understand that blah is not scientific. They need to understand that there is no cure in that medication, but there are other things which will help their child, will help an understanding, and will change and can change and improve that situation. So don't go jumping in because your doctor says this, your psychiatrist says this, your teacher said that. I've had parents who have done otherwise and have handled their children scientifically, without medication, without the labels. So that's my message.
Well, it's a great message, and it's definitely important, and one that's always on time. We've spoken in the past about some of the horrors and atrocities of the so-called health industry. And, there was one thing I did want to ask you about your event. Did you actually get any support from local authority?
Well, it's a good question. It's a good question. My answer is simple. I wouldn't go to any local authority for support. Well, why wouldn't I do that? Because that's part of the system. The system doesn't initiate or doesn't put out support to things or groups which have solutions which are alternative to their practices, because they can't. They can't change the system. If I was to put Delphine at the head of the educating system, for example, she would revolutionize the system so much. It would just be like a tsunami. Why? Because she will start from the top and she will work her way down and put in things that actually just would blow the system apart in a good way. And that is not the way that the system is designed. The system is not designed for children to become the best that they can be, to be critical thinkers, to understand and reach their full potential. The system isn't designed that way. I'm not saying some children don't. I'm not saying that teachers aren't trying to achieve that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm talking about the system.
Yeah, no, 100%. I totally agree. But brother, no, I mean, we got about 5 minutes left. Before we wind down on that, well, we got about 4 minutes left now. My production is telling me. But the last time we spoke, we did go over some of your other work that you be doing, which some of you, spoken word pieces, music type pieces, and you did let us know you had something cooking. I believe it was 400 volts and jolts. I'm still waiting. Can we expect that anytime soon, maybe before the year's out, or is
Yes,
something that would that be a 2025 project?
It will be a 2025 project. Although the song was written, the song was recorded, I wanted to change it a bit, and so we've had to excuse me, we've had to put that on ice for a moment. But there is an adjacent project which will go along with that, and it's called The Illusion.
Okay.
And The Illusion asks the question: is help with our mental health under psychiatry an illusion? That's the question the campaign asks. So that will be the campaign for the new year. Some of the sketches have been drafted and done, but that's the question, and that's the question I want parents to ask. Is help, or anybody to ask, is help with our mental health under psychiatry an illusion? If you have to take this pill from now until you reach your box, is that really a solution to the problem? When we look at real solutions, the mind by nature is set in a particular way. Medication is a toxic, destructive element on the body. It's not. It doesn't work.
And for the most part, it just masks the it's a mask for what the actual root causation is. Sometimes it doesn't even address it, especially nowadays with some of these GPs. They might just prescribe something that they just feel like it, and it can mask some of the ailments but it doesn't actually deal with the root cause, you know, what created the issue. Doesn't Sometimes they haven't got a clue, or they don't even show that interest. But that is definitely a wider conversation for another time, my brother. I appreciate your time with us on this episode. We'll definitely have you back on soon, maybe to go over the Illusion project, Pachamama. That is out, it's available, it's done, and there's more to come, obviously, as you said, with the Illusion, with the other works, the 400 volts and jolts, and you know, whatever other goodness you've got to come forth. We're going to be looking forward to it. Do keep us updated. You guys can follow Noel Lindsay on his social media. I'll put some links in the description. Encourage you guys to check out Delphine Ryan's works as well also. So we're going to wind down on this one. It's another brilliant episode. Glad to be back in the swing. It is November the 19th as of taping. Not sure when you guys will be able to check this out. It shouldn't be too long, but we definitely want to wish everybody the best for the holiday season. Any last words you want to say, brother?
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's amazing work that you're doing, and thank you for allowing me to communicate some of the things which I feel, like other people, are very, very important.
Much love, and thank you once again for joining us.